It only changes if we suddenly say, well, we don't want the baby. Now all of a sudden we act like we got amnesia, and we pretend we don't know when human life begins, and we pretend it's a great scientific mystery. It's not a great scientific mystery. When sperm meets egg, the moment of conception, a unique individual human life comes into existence. That's when your life began.
There is no defined line as to when the baby actually becomes human.
Sure there is.
No, if we're debating whether or not a baby is a person, that is a philosophical debate.
Right.
No,
It's a moral value. The moral value of the baby, yes.
You can think
The humanity, no.
You can think that at 6 weeks the baby is alive, and then that's your choice to not kill the baby. But if we want to get abortions, then we can get abortions.
So what if?
You can get sued by a parent.
Yeah, basically that's when we count it as legally alive. If you're going to
Well, you know that it used to be that we did recognize, right, prior to that every state in this country had laws against abortion prior to the Roe versus Wade decision. Right, there were 7 states that had passed some light legalities, right, mostly under the pretenses of rape and incest. So for hundreds of years, abortion was criminal in this country, right? Since we legalized abortion, suddenly we don't know when human life begins. We did before that. We were pretty clear. Science was pretty clear. If a pregnant woman walked into an OBGYN clinic and she said, hey, I'm pregnant, the doctor will, and still a doctor will say, well, let's see if we can get your baby's heartbeat. Sit down on the table, let's get an ultrasound. That's great. Do you have a name for the baby yet? So OBGYN and a mom and a dad are going to talk about the baby in the womb. That's how it works.
I think a lot.
It only changes if we suddenly say, well, we don't want the baby. Now all of a sudden we act like we got amnesia, and we pretend we don't know when human life begins, and we pretend it's a great scientific mystery. It's not a great scientific mystery. When sperm meets egg, the moment of conception, a unique individual human life comes into existence. That's when your life began.
count that as a person.
Now that's a good question. Now that's a good question. How would we answer that?
Yeah, at what point?
Yeah. How do we decide that?
I would say
And what are the criteria we would use to even evaluate that?
we cannot legislate that into law because
Why not?
it's different for every single.
That's exactly what this is trying to do. This is trying to legislate a particular viewpoint into law.
What that would do.
It's imposing.
That says everyone is free to determine when that.
Yeah, so it's imposing a particular definition. It's saying you are not a baby until viability.
People the freedom to decide when
To
that
kill.
becomes a person.
No, it says you can kill a baby up to viability for any reason.
Yes. And
Up to 24 weeks, late into the second trimester.
What abortion is, abortion.
No, it's not healthcare. There's no medical necessity to get 99.9% of abortions.
Yes, it is.
This isn't about medical necessity. This isn't about medical necessity. Medical necessity is already legal.
Yes, it is.
This is about unrestricted abortion up to 9 months.
You're misunderstanding.
That's what this is about. Unrestricted abortion up to 9 months. Read the amendment.
And I can tell you, women are exempt from any prosecution for having an abortion, much less a miscarriage. A woman would never be prosecuted in the state of Texas for having an abortion or a miscarriage.
Are we going to prosecute the doctors?
Yeah, doctors are prosecuted in Texas.
Okay, so why are we telling the doctors that they can't make the best decision for their patients?
Because murdering a baby is not the best decision.
That's up to the doctor to decide.
It's up to the state of Texas.
That's up to the doctor and the patient to
No,
decide.
no.
What if giving
You don't get to decide. You don't get to dehumanize people you don't like because you have power. You don't reserve that right. You don't get the right to tell somebody else they're not a human being. You don't get the right to tell that baby it's not a human being.
You don't get
the right to tell that baby that baby's not a baby.
Well, maybe that baby doesn't think that.
It's because you don't like the baby and don't want to take care of it.
I never said my opinion on the baby. No, I didn't.
You said it's not a human being.
I said the baby's not a person. A human being is a very different subject than a person.
Just a reminder, don't put this online, okay?
So you're stripping. You're saying it's a human being. But it
No,
doesn't-
Can't sue. We're in a public place. We're in a public property.
Yeah, I'll sue.
They're obviously going to post it so they can make fun of us later.
Yeah.
A human
You
being is
don't
very
make fun of
different.
people, just let you guys talk.
human being-
I think most people that care and think and reason will see that
There's a
there's a lot of
difference in
problems.
Yeah, sure, they're brainwashed like you.
We can talk about
It's not
You're the one that said you're going to be put in
sorry.
jail for having miscarriages. I mean, I'm not help you there.
We can talk about
It's
You're
happened.
feeding on a lot of bad propaganda.
the difference between killing a 8-month pregnant child and killing a 2-month-old baby is whether or not we give that child personhood.
Who's we?
We as a society, we as
And so we did at one time, and that was stripped from them. So was it right to strip them of their rights?
But that's what
of their identity
what
and
that
value.
does
Was
is
that right?
what that does is allows the parents to decide if that child is rather if that child has personhood. And usually after the first trimester, they've already made their decision whether or not they want to keep
Let me answer
it.
this question.
Cases in which
Is your humanity and your moral worth and value, your personhood, is that conferred to you by your mother's opinion of you?
No, it's conferred to me by my opinion of me.
Well, when you were in the womb, where did you? How was value conferred to you before you?
Value was conferred to me by my parents, and they chose to have me.
So if when you were 1 month old outside the womb, if your mother said, "I don't want this baby anymore. This baby cries all the time, costs me money. I'm having postpartum," and she takes the tools that the abortion doctor uses, it starts tearing your body apart, flushes you in the garbage can,
That is
like the abortion doctor.
Then she's prosecuted for murder.
Why would they be murdered?
Because
Doesn't she have the freedom? Doesn't she have the freedom to decide?
we have decided that this 1 month old baby, however old it was in your example, is both a living person and thus has those rights. So
Who decided that?
the law decided to say.
There was never a law in Florida that decided that.
Can you kill someone
The
who
United
doesn't
States
have a birth
Supreme Court
certificate?
decided that, but courts don't make law. So there was a court
this.
opinion that imposed abortion on the state of Florida. Florida never legalized abortion. Florida never said it was okay to kill babies in the womb. That was what the United States Supreme Court
Is it
imposed.
murder if you kill someone without a birth certificate?
it is.
I mean, of course
Okay,
it is.
so-
I mean, birth certificate has zero relevance.
Just like
Okay,
it wouldn't be murder if he was killing himself. It's still a person.
My point, hold on, where I was going on that is that you have objective value. You have objective definable value as a human being. That objective definable value doesn't start when you're born. It doesn't start when the umbilical cord is cut. 10 seconds before the umbilical cord is cut, or 10 seconds before you come through the birth canal, you're every bit as human as you are after that. You don't suddenly gain humanity in 10 seconds. You are, well, and I would say, in our laws for several hundred years said that was a person.
Why don't we kill
Seven Supreme Court justices stripped those babies of their rights. And now you're saying that should still be imposed on us, when it was never offered by a vote of the people.
Have the freedom to make their own medical.
What gives you the right to impose that on the baby?
Everyone has.
You're
this
imposing
freedom.
that on society.
The baby can't say whether it does or doesn't.
Yeah, neither can a 1-year-old, neither can a 6-month-old. I mean, the Romans used to leave infants. They had an infant law, right? They would leave born infants and feed them to dogs. They leave when the Christians would risk their lives and go and grab those little children, those little dying infants, and they would care for them. And it was illegal in the Roman Empire to do that. It was called the infanticide wall, right? So just because society says you don't have value doesn't mean you don't actually have value, unless you believe that society is, or the consensus of society is the basis of morality and truth. Unless you're going to tell me that
The conception of society is that someone has a gun to all of us and we follow the laws because they have the gun to us.
But they don't determine what is ultimately right or wrong.
They do, because they have the gun to
No,
us.
they can determine what the laws are.
someone has a
but
gun to
law
the back of
and
your
right
head.
is not synonymous. The law and morality are not synonymous.
All the law is codified morality.
You're right, and it can be wrong. Because our morality can be wrong. Also, our laws can come out of juncture with our morality.
The law is
That is exactly the million-dollar question, isn't it? Now we're getting to the root of the issue. For Christians historically that built this country, wrote the Constitution and Declaration of Independence, they said we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. So our founders, it was the Christian God, the God of Christianity.
Did they specify that?
Yeah.
Where?
All 13 colonies recognized the Christian God in their state constitution
Then why do we not have
when
a
the Constitution was
established
ratified. And laws are not neutral. Morality is not neutral. We're all we all have a certain worldview that we impose on the world around us, upon which we impose objective moral judgment. You've imposed a lot of moral objective judgment on me, as I have on you. Let's not pretend there's neutrality. The question is whose morality is right. And I would argue that the Christian view is right and has been the basis of the greatest nation that's produced freedom and prosperity and liberty and been able to right gross injustices and wrongs and provide tremendous human value and dignity to a wide spectrum of ethnic backgrounds and peoples. People come from all over the world here because our Christian values recognize realize we're all made in God's image. And while that's waning, we're becoming increasingly secular. We're losing our Christian values. We're becoming less concerned about our fellow human being. We're becoming more consumer-driven and selfish. We now sacrifice our children on the altar of convenience. We've aborted 60 million babies, but that doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it okay. Right? So if you have an alternative moral worldview that you think should be the basis of morality, well, then argue for that. And you think that that's good to impose on society, it will produce greater human flourishing. I'd love to hear it. So what would be the basis upon which you would say it's okay to kill a 6-month-old baby? What gives anybody the right to do that?
You're not arguing, right?
So is choice just completely anything anybody wants to do?
When it only affects like me and one person, then yeah.
Okay, so if you and a 2-year-old, you want to strangle that 2-year-old?
No,
that's okay.
Because the 2-year-old is their own person who decided.
Okay, so who's to determine who's a person and who isn't a person? You?
That's a subjective determination.
Subjective. So who determines it ultimately?
It's subjective. It's up to interpretation. Every single person has a different line.
What is your moral foundation and your rational foundation for determining who you subscribe personhood to?
None of this
Should it be arbitrary? Should it be arbitrary? Should it be arbitrary and imposed by the guys with the biggest guns? Or a rational justification?
How our society is.
It is, sadly, yeah. Whoever's got the most money, right?
Yeah, that's how it's always been. You always.
America wasn't that way.
You are always subject to the guys with the biggest guns. That is how we have existed.
One of the great things that America has tried to do is, hey, God bless you, thank you. There was a book written by a guy named Samuel Rutherford, and a lot of English common law. And American law. So the guys that founded America, they thought very deeply about this. They drank from the well of great Protestant Christian theology on politics and government and law. That was one of those ideas, was the idea of universal human value. The value of women and children, right? The ancient Roman world didn't respect women and children's rights. There was no such thing.
And neither did the ancient Christian world either.
Sure they did. Absolutely they did. Sure they did. The first laws that protected women and children and gave them equality was after the Roman Empire was Christianized. Absolutely. Look at Constantine, some of his reforms, and then for the centuries after that. Absolutely.
Yeah, Eastern Orthodoxy, but not Protestantism.
Well, Protestantism didn't come around to the 1500s.
Yeah, and a lot of Protestant and even Catholic regimes did not give women those rights.
Give me an example of one.
Off the top of my head. Even like
Luther's Germany was very tolerant of very women had tremendous rights in Luther's Germany. In England, women were on the throne. England was the
same role as a man as I live.
There you go. Amen.
Who the fuck says?
Well, God, if He exists, if God exists, then He would be an authority, right?
Created them man and woman.
Biological design. Correct.
Can you prove there are different roles?
Yeah,
the way I live my life is not the way
let me. Right, like here's one example. She can get pregnant. I can't. She carries a baby for 9 months in her womb. Do you know the biological connections between a mother and a baby that exist? That as a dad, I'm a dad of 11 kids. I love my kids, and I try to keep a close connection to my kids. But I will never have the type of a chemical bond that my wife does with my kids. You carry a child for 9 months, developing in your womb, living off your body. Mothers have a mother's intuition that stays with them till they die. Mothers at 70 years old still get this intuition about their kids, right? And so that's real biology. We can't just dismiss that. The modern feminist movement would say there's nothing there. Motherhood is actually, something to be trampled upon. They do, right? I mean, what did Kamala Harris? She'll be our first female president. She'll also be the first woman to hold a high level of office that has never had a child. And she doesn't want a child. Taylor Swift said that she's voting for Kamala Harris precisely for the reason because Kamala Harris
and that's their choice.
Is going to give her the right to have all kind of unbridled sexual perversion and kill babies.
They've chosen not to have
kids. But that's a fundamental denial of our biology.
You don't have to get pregnant.
We're right.
The goal of life is not to just reproduce.
I never said it's the goal of life, but it is a goal.
Life is subjective. That's on you to find out for yourself.
Really? Did you create yourself?
If you want to have kids, then go ahead.
Hang on. Did you create yourself?
No.
So then what gives you the authority to define what the purpose of your life is?
What gives you the authority to define what
I don't. I never said I had that authority. You're the one that's saying you have that authority. I'm saying God has that authority, that there's a higher law. I'm saying there's a higher, dude, if I did what I wanted to do, dude, I used to be a dog, man. Like my life had to change dramatically. I had to learn massive self-denial that was not a dog, not a furry. I mean like a sexual dog. Like I was a very undisciplined man who did not respect and honor women. I was raised on gangster rap music, and bitches and hoes. That was how I was raised. And God changed my life radically at 19 years old. I realized I was a selfish, sinful person. Christ saved me. I realized the love of God
was far greater than any drug I'd ever done, any sexual escapade, and Christ radically transformed me. And he taught me how to love women and and how to be a father, you know? And it's hard, it's very hard, but it's really where life's meaning is found, right?
I don't think we really have a creator.
How do you think we got it?
We just kind of came into being. That really is just it.
I mean, that's one theory, but
Why is there a universe?
I'm not into physics. You'd have to ask a physicist
So we
about
would-
that.
there are Christian physicists.
There
There are.
Bang, right?
Yeah.
Typically, right?
You know someone made that, right?
Yeah, someone made the chair.
So you
We've never met the maker.
But that,
We've never
that's
seen him.
not a living thing. Like,
Yeah, all the more how
the chair is not
complicated is
alive.
life for it to not
Exactly.
Tool that we have built ourselves. Humans are not tools, and thus we don't have builders per se.
We have a design, though. We have a design. So to your point, you're even making his point even more so, because human life especially, is even more complex than this. But think about this: when have we? Yeah, you're a bit on him. When have you ever seen human life created? So from a scientific standpoint, what is demonstrable and observable, testable and reproducible? We've only ever seen life come into existence from another living organism, another living being. Living beings produce living beings, right? We've never seen a living being come into existence from non-living matter. Has it ever happened?
Scientists have actually been able to simulate the same thing.
Irresponsible, selfish men all love Amendment 4.
The raw organic materials that were at the beginning of life, and they hit them with lightning and nothing happens. They run the experiment multiple times with environments that are similar to the basis of Earth, and it's actually not happened.
You're going with the Miller Dewey thing? My name is Jason. Chris, hey, thanks for talking, man. I appreciate the thoughtful discussion.